So 2020 has officially begun. It's already going far too quickly, I might add. So I thought I'd make a little video about my top 10 favourite films of 2019. I know it's a bit late, but you know, the movie year, it's a little bit like the school year. It sort of starts and ends in a different place to the actual year. Time is relative. Slow and steady wins the race. That's how you make successful internet videos. Being last. Before we go any further, I just want to say thank you to Surfshark for sponsoring this video. They are giving you 83% off, which is a very specific number, but you know, it's better than 82, isn't it? They're also giving you an extra month for free. Oh, they're basically giving it away. One last thing before we get started. Remember that this is just my opinion, but an interesting fact about me, I've never been wrong. Number 10, Benjamin. This is a lovely little comedy drama film written and directed by Simon Amstell. If you're at all a fan of his stand-up, you should love this too. It's got his sharp, dry wit, but it's also very sweet and heartwarming. I saw this in the Curzon in Soho, and there's a scene in this film that takes place in the Curzon in Soho. So I was actually in the room watching a scene in the film that was in the room I was in while watching the film. It was a very surreal experience. I've never had that before. Clearly the story came from a very personal place and it really resonated with me. I don't know why. It's just about a young filmmaker who's struggling to accept love. Number 9, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I think I'm going to get a bit of flack for this one because I know a lot of people hated it. I think that expectations can sometimes be the death of enjoyment. People wanted this to be like another Pulp Fiction, and Tarantino knows that. He knows that you're going into this with a certain idea of what his film should be, and he makes a point of subverting that. And without saying too much, I think a knowledge of what happened in the infamous Manson family murders is necessary to enjoy this film, otherwise you're going to miss the thread of tension that permeates through the entire story. A lot of people are saying that nothing really happens during this film, but I felt tense most of the time. I was waiting for something bad to happen. And even when nothing really was happening, I enjoyed seeing Leonardo DiCaprio on a film set. I enjoyed seeing Brad Pitt drive around 1960s Hollywood and taking his shirt off. I enjoyed it. Number 8, 1917. The first time I saw 1917, it was a visceral, completely immersive and emotional experience. There's a moment towards the end of the film, which is in the trailer, which annoyed me a bit, but seeing it in context, it completely overwhelmed me. Something that I really liked was that the protagonist was a really good person who spends most of the film wandering through war and trying not to kill people. But the thing that really impressed me is that the director, Sam Mendes, is clearly aware of the audience's capacity to emotionally invest. He gives you moments to breathe between the tension. He's created like a rhythm in the story, and I think that that's particularly impressive because it takes place in one continuous take. But because it is designed that way to look like it's in one take, you can't find that rhythm in the edit. That had to be planned. That is so impressive to me. I will say, and the reason why it's not higher on my list is because I'm somebody who likes to watch films multiple times, and the second time I saw this, some of the emotion and the suspense didn't quite work for me in the same way. I think it's quite surface level, and I know that sounds really critical, but I don't mean it to be. I think it was always designed to feel like a roller coaster. You were supposed to get what you needed out of it the first time you watch it. Number 7, Booksmart. I just love this movie so much. I love it more every time I see it. I grew up watching John Hughes movies, so coming of age stuff, teen movies. If you're in that genre, I have a soft spot for it. You've pretty much got me. This is a totally fresh, funny, surreal, modern, and original coming of age movie. It's about female friendship. It's got a banging soundtrack. Olivia Wilde directs the shit out of it. It's a bit gay. What more can I say? I loved it. If you haven't seen it, please watch it. Number 6, Knives Out. Who hired me? It doesn't make sense. I should probably stop doing that. I'm going to probably offend someone. Daniel Craig is clearly having a blast. I love that in his other roles, he's just doing the opposite of James Bond. I think they're planning on doing a sequel to Knives Out, and I, for one, couldn't be happier to see Daniel Craig do more of this. This is a whodunit film like I've never seen before. The perspective it takes, I'm not going to spoil anything, but the perspective it takes is so unexpected. I think the best way to enjoy this movie as well is not to try and figure out what's going on. You should just let it happen and you'll enjoy it more. I don't know if you've noticed, but Rian Johnson really likes subverting expectations. He's really good at it. He should maybe do it in like a space movie. I think everyone would really like that. Yeah, it's a really fun movie. He keeps the tone pretty light, but I also think he's exploring some stuff that's socially and politically very relevant, but he doesn't let it distract from the plot or the story. It's just sort of woven in, and it's definitely the notes that you're left on. Yeah, love it. Bring on the sequel. Knives in. Number 5, Little Women. Little Women, silhouetted. Greta Gerwig has crafted a gorgeous emotional storybook narrative that just washes over you. It's what I would call a perfect Sunday afternoon film. It's just so cozy. I genuinely as well, in contrast to 1917, think that this film takes multiple viewings to really appreciate what Greta Gerwig is doing. It's not showy directing. It feels really hands-off, and I think that Greta Gerwig's biggest achievement is making something this complicated look simple. Like, imagine trying to create this just in your head. It's essentially the same as what Nolan does, like with all the different strands and different times all syncing up together, but he's doing it on a grand, big blockbuster scale, but this just happens to be a smaller, more intimate story. But in terms of plotting it out, it's just as complicated. I really loved how she handled the difference between the past and the present. The past literally had a rose tint on it. It made it feel very dreamlike and almost unreal. Like the scene where the dad comes back for Christmas feels way too perfect, so it makes me think, is this how it happened? Or is this just how you're remembering it happened? I would recommend as well, if you're interested in knowing more about this sort of stuff, a podcast called Script Notes. Greta Gerwig did an entire episode just talking about this sort of stuff, and she doesn't really even know how clever she is. She just says stuff, and I'm like, I'm in awe of you. Speaking of podcasts, I do one of them with Mark Kermode called Kermode on Film. We talk about the latest films together. We've talked about old films. We've debated about the best Spielberg film. The latest one is us talking about our favourite use of music in scenes. So not our favourite soundtracks, but the best use of music in a scene that wouldn't be the same without that piece of music. I'll leave the link to it in the description. I'd love you to listen and subscribe. I love doing it, so I'd love you to be part of it. Number 4, Honey Boy. Shia LaBeouf wrote this script as a therapy exercise whilst processing the trauma he suffered from growing up as a child actor with an alcoholic father, who he plays in this film. It is one of my favourite performances of the entire year. I would give him Best Supporting Actor. He's not even nominated. And not only that, but the writing is very raw and compassionate. He's not hiding away from anything. He's not judging anything. He's not villainizing anybody. He's just sort of showing how it was. Alma Har'el, who directed this movie, this is her first feature film, which blows my mind. Again, if I was giving out awards, she would get Best Director. Her approach to this movie is so sensitive and respectful. It is elegant, and she treats the story with the complexity that it deserves. It works for me on every level. I loved it. I really recommend it. Number 3, Parasite. Obviously, this was going to be on the list. It's the talk of the town. It's everyone's favourite. And if somehow you haven't heard of it yet, good. You should just watch it without knowing anything. And it's so good that it's hard to summarise. It's so many things. It shifts from being a comedy into a Hitchcockian thriller with complete ease. Bong Joon-ho, who's the director, has complete control over his craft. It is so precisely directed. It's beautifully shot. It's thematically timely. I don't want to say any more. It's as good as everybody says. That's all I'm going to say. Please just watch it. Number 2, Uncut Gems. This movie is unpredictable and anxiety-inducing, and I loved every second of it. Adam Sandler is outstanding. He completely disappears. I could see it was Adam Sandler, but I forgot it was Adam Sandler. Again, it's just a little bit baffling that he hasn't been nominated for any awards for this. It's one of the most exciting films I've seen in a very long time. Like, it's a film that made me excited about films. I think it's on Netflix now. You should definitely go and watch it. It's amazing. And finally, number 1, Marriage Story. This film is very special to me. I think that with movies like this, you get out of them what you bring to them, and I brought a lot. I saw it last year when I was in Los Angeles at a old cinema called The Vista, which is a single screen cinema that played it on 35mm film. It was so perfect, and it felt like the film already existed, and I was just discovering it. Adam Driver and Scarlett Johansson give 2 of the best performances of the year, and probably the best performances of their careers. Noah Baumbach's writing and directing, similar to his missus, Greta Gerwig, it looks simple, but to create what feel like very real moments on screen like that is just a magic trick. I think it's not only my favourite film of last year, it is my favourite film for years. Not in 4 years, 4 years. And now, a word from our sponsor. Surfshark is a VPN, or a virtual private network, which is a privacy protection tool which guarantees instant online safety. Surfshark encrypts all the data sent via the internet so that no one can see your passwords, read your private messages, steal your photos, your videos, or sensitive data. I'm not judging. It's your sensitive data and no one should see it. Unless you want them to. You can also, and this is one of my favourite ones, change the country that you're accessing the internet from so that you can unblock content from different... You know, like on YouTube when it's like, oh, you can't watch this because you're in the wrong place. That problem solved. There's lots of other great features on it that you can block ads and malicious websites. Using public Wi-Fi is obviously really handy, but it's a gold mine for people to try and get into your stuff. If you use Surfshark, you can protect your connection. So if you use my code, which is just my name, Jack Howard, you'll get that very specific 83% off with a 1 extra month for free and a 30-day money-back guarantee. So what's the risk? There is none. Go and be safe on the internet. The link's in the description. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like it, because if you liked it, then liking it just makes sense, doesn't it? Leave your favourite films in the comments below. Don't forget to check out my podcast with Kermode, and I will see you soon. Bye.